Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. The date is 10 August 1999, just a few weeks before the conflict between India and Pakistan known as Kargil War ended. This obviously meant the tensions between those two countries were higher than usual. At 10:30, a Pakistani Breguet Atlantique took off from Naval Air Station Mehran in Karachi. Breguet Atlantique is a French-built airplane primarily used for naval reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare. It can carry various weapons such as torpedoes, depth charges, and anti-ship missiles, but also conventional bombs and rockets. Now, I have to point out that events which we will reenact in this video are described mostly by Indian sources. Pakistani sources are very scarce and what they say can be summed up in a few sentences, but more on that later. Also, we don't have Breguet Atlantique in TCS World, so we are using Antonov An-26 as a stand-in. This is a transport airplane only and smaller than the Atlantique, but it is also a two-engine propeller-driven type. The only other alternative would have been P-3 Orion from the military aircraft mod, but it doesn't appear to have a working damage model, so Antonov was chosen instead. Indian ground radars picked up a track in Pakistani airspace at 10:51. The track was approaching the international border on a southeasterly course. Now, I have to mention the existence of an agreement between Pakistan and India from 1991, according to which no fixed-wing airplanes are allowed to fly within 10 kilometers from the border. Indian radars, however, found that the contact touched the border at 10:54. It then continued to maneuver either within the 10-kilometer area or close to it. Two MiG-21s at Nalia Indian Air Force Base were scrambled as soon as the contact first came across the border. They took off at 10:59. The flight lead was Squadron Leader Prashant Bundela. His wingman was Flying Officer Sanjeev Narayanan. Two MiG-21s were on northerly course. The Pakistani airplane was now back in its own airspace and flying on a westerly course parallel to the border. Indian interceptors then turned west as well, flying south of the border. The bogey then turned south at 11:14 and penetrated about 10 kilometers into Indian airspace. Two MiGs now maneuvered to prevent the Atlantique from returning to Pakistani airspace, with Squadron Leader Bundela placing himself between the bogey and the border, and Flying Officer Narayanan moved behind it. Bundela made a radar contact between 10 and 15 kilometers of range. Both MiG pilots then visually identified the intruder as Pakistani Navy Atlantique. Bundela moved within 300 meters on the left side, with the intention of signaling visually or communicating on the radio to direct it to land at the nearest Indian Air Force base. In such a case, the intercepted aircraft must maintain height and course unless instructed otherwise by the interceptors. But the Pakistani aircraft pulled a left turn towards Squadron Leader Bundela. This was interpreted as an aggressive act, and the intruder was declared hostile. He no longer had an option to return to his own airspace. Pakistani Atlantique was now trying to do exactly that. It made a dash north, hoping to evade his interceptors. Squadron Leader Bundela contacted the ground control and asked for permission to engage.
Permission to engage. Affirmative. You are cleared to fire. Missile gone. Left engine on fire. Rating off.
Group Captain Sharma, who had taken over from an inexperienced controller, cleared him to fire. Bundela launched an R-60 missile, which hit the Pakistani Atlantique at about 11:17. According to Indian sources, it was still about 5 kilometers inside Indian airspace. It entered a downward spiral and eventually crashed across the border. All 16 crew members were killed. As already mentioned, Pakistani sources don't say much about this incident. They essentially claim that the Atlantique was on a training mission, it was unarmed, and it never entered Indian airspace. It made a navigational error and indeed came within the 10 kilometers from the border, but it never crossed it. The shoot-down, according to them, was an unprovoked act from the Indian side. The fact that the airplane crashed on the Pakistani side was seen as a proof that the incident took place in Pakistani airspace. Indian counter-arguments are that this was a military aircraft that can carry various weapons. Its flight path excludes navigational error because the airplane spent more than 20 minutes in the vicinity of the border, so Pakistani radar control should have had plenty of time to warn the crew. Atlantique is primarily a naval airplane which usually flies over water, so training over land seems illogical. The fact that 16 crew members were on board indicates that they were operating various electronic systems. This, according to India, can only mean that the Pakistani airplane was deliberately probing Indian defenses, measuring response times, radio communications, etc. An Indian helicopter was also able to retrieve debris from the Atlantique, which seemed to indicate that pieces started to fall off while still in Indian airspace. Pakistan claims that the Indian helicopter entered Pakistani airspace, took the pieces, and returned. I can already predict many of your comments. Indian side will claim that this was a legitimate defense of one's airspace. Pakistani side will without any doubt call this a cowardly act. Sure, this wasn't a dogfight of equal opponents, but such things almost never happen, not in the last 40 or so years at least. Just try to imagine how you would feel if the situation was reversed. How would you feel about an Indian patrol aircraft shot down by Pakistani fighters? Pakistan filed a lawsuit against India in the International Court of Justice. The lawsuit was dismissed. Squadron leader Bundela was decorated, along with Wing Commander Sharma, the ground controller, and Squadron leader Vishnoi, the helicopter pilot who retrieved parts of the Atlantique. Bundela was later promoted to Wing Commander, but was seriously injured after ejecting from a MiG-21 in April 2002. He was left paralyzed and died in August that year. If you liked the video, be sure to press the like button, support the channel on Patreon if you're able to, subscribe if you haven't already, and keep watching Showtime Moment 2.